Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. So today we're going to be continuing our discussion on the console framework and this entire ecosystem, whatever the heck you want to call it, where you have Sony and PlayStation doing their thing. You have Microsoft and Xbox also doing their thing, providing in their minds as much value as they can for gamers. Now, as usual, I mean, there are parameters where you can say one is actually doing a good job beating the other one, or one of them is doing this better than the other. But I believe strongly that though Xbox seems to have a very strong position right now with some of the moves that they've made, and their moves were actually well set out. I remember at the onset, if everybody remembers, when the summer, right before the consoles were released, Sony came out with this huge announcement of many video games, and it seemed like Xbox had nothing to offer. But once circumstance changed the release date of a lot of video games, it became evident that, with these delays, games are not just going to be showing up like they have in the past 2, 3, 4, even 5 years. And so that made everybody kind of look much more closely now with, kind of a microscopic lens to see what both of them are doing. And as it stands, it appears that, Microsoft has a very strong position with games, the Game Pass system. I have Game Pass and I've had it for about a year or more. I take that back. Sorry. I signed up day one, for Game Pass on PC. Once it was announced at E3, I jumped in and I signed up. I even signed up for the beta for the mobile streaming of Xbox Cloud, X Cloud, or something like that. And that was also a very strong proposition as well. And that's something that I think they were trying to bring to the mobile devices. And Apple hasn't really let Microsoft in because of some, issues. And I think if they do, my goodness, that's also going to be a really strong position for them as well. But at the end of the day, this is not a time to write off Sony, because there still are a lot of very strong aspects to what it is that they're doing. And, I made my last video and I talked about, it seems like Xbox has a very strong offering, and that's the truth. I think what's happened right now is Microsoft has actually come, as close as possible to what Microsoft has been, I think, maybe envisioning for years, since Sony basically took domination over the past generation. But I think when Sony was dominating, they didn't necessarily pay a lot of attention to how a lot of these things will maybe potentially play out. And that's the thing, you can't really see the future, nor can you project. So at any point where you don't focus much on your customer and some of the things that they like, it seems like something or some circumstance you can't, control comes in and reshapes or restructures your focus. And what that means is you basically get a kick in the chin when circumstances don't align. So I'm sitting here with my PlayStation 5 and I'm thinking to myself, what is the meaning of these moves that Sony was making when they said, oh, your PS5 controller cannot work on your PS4? Were they so confident that they had a fan base that would be happy to accept that? And I think they were. And then I look back at the Xbox and said, I remember when a lot of Xbox players basically, all they had was just, them saying, oh, you can use your Xbox controller, and that seemed like it wasn't really a big deal, because we were like, yeah, I could just buy another controller. But then I thought about it, I was like, I got a second controller the other day, and I was like, you can get a controller, but you can't even get the console. So what's even the point of getting a controller that you can't necessarily use? Another thing too is for your PC. Now you may say, well, that doesn't really seem like it's a big deal, but it is. Your PlayStation controller cannot connect to a PlayStation OEM Bluetooth device for PCs. I have one. I literally bought it on Amazon and it got shipped. I think it was basically the last one they had. I think it got shipped from Japan before all of them started going crazy in prices. And it will not connect to a PS5 controller. So you're not necessarily getting the full value of a controller that is much more modern than your old PS4 controller, which you can actually use on a PC and on the PS4 and on the PS5 console when playing PS4 games. So your old controllers are basically kind of like, quite strong, whereas your Xbox controller has a natural sequence, basically, in connecting with your new Xbox consoles and playing any game and connecting with your PC. And, Microsoft has been doing all these little friendly things that once Sony didn't have a slew of these new generation exclusives to basically just throw out there, I've started to look at them with a microscopic focus. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to make anybody crack, but I think what this is happening is it's making Sony's, in a quote, in my quote anyway, strange hold on gaming to start to look, kind of bare, like what's going on. And that's the question that and I'm certain a lot of other gamers are probably asking at this point. So this is definitely something that I would say, sounds like a little, aspect of things, but seems to be pushing Sony to actually do better. And I say this because they seem to be doing better. They are now going in very, very strongly on a lot of their PlayStation indies, features. Now, this is a big deal. This is a very, very big deal. One of the really important things about, gaming for me is just the past few months, I found myself in a position where I've started to learn game development. So, you can call me like an amateur, or even much more noobish than an amateur, or whatever you want to call it, like a Padawan or something in game development. And the indie scene has basically been largely hidden from console development. And I think Microsoft has been going in really hard in supporting a lot of developers. Even Sony has done a good job. EA, of all people, kind of had to, take on some indie development as well. And I think Sony is starting to move to that direction and showcasing more indie stuff, which is actually pretty good, because in these indie games, you're going to see some really awesome games that will give you some really good playtime and some good value when you want to kind of step away from, the high pace, high powered, high crowded, AAA games that in many cases will be multiplayer, have a lot of brow to them, or have those kind of things that they've developed over years. I'm not saying anything's wrong with, a lot of the AAA games. I'm just saying they've just kind of cut their cloth on a lot of these things. One of the best things to do is to go to an indie developer game, or, play some indie style games that are cute, that still have some of those grounded aspects of gaming to them, and you're able to just leverage those. I mean, a game like Control, I think it's done by a studio that is not necessarily AAA, but is, of some sort, kind of a studio that can drop a very good game. And, some other titles like that really do come to mind, and they kind of allow for you to be able to do stuff in that sense. In the ecosystem of Game Pass, these games have been available since the system, since the whole platform came out and launched. And Sony basically didn't have anything to worry about. With the past generation, they had the Spider-Man game, they had the God of War game, they had Horizon Zero Dawn, and they were talking about Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima at that time. So, a lot of people didn't necessarily pay attention to it. But now that a lot of people have beaten these games, it's kind of like, okay, so what else is going on? Where are we right now? And I think Sony is making the moves for indie. May not seem like a big thing for a lot of people, but, don't be misunderstood, man. There are gamers, and there's a huge amount of market space for people to play a wide variety of games as they're coming. So, until we get like another big, huge title like a Spider-Man or whatever, I think these little things that, Microsoft has invested in, and some of the things that Sony missed out on, will start to showcase who has their consumers in mind. And I think Sony will continue to keep up. I'm not saying Sony is going anywhere, no, but this is the competition that I've always dreamed about and envisioned, and I hope that it will come soon, and I'm glad it's actually here, because this will mean that both companies will continue to try to find ways to serve their consumers, which is us, and we're going to get the very best of the benefits. So if you're already on the PlayStation side, I've already seen some comments based on my last video saying, it just seems like buying these consoles almost make like no sense. I have to say that, that doesn't necessarily look at all of the nuances that goes into this stuff. Whichever ecosystem you're on, I think you're fine. I think, yes, one of them is, Microsoft is going nuts. I mean, giving Outriders to pretty much people that have Game Pass. This is a good thing, by the way. For those of you who don't know, who say Game Pass doesn't really work, talk to people in other regions where games are quite pricey and, you don't get a lot of sales. I've seen some comments to both effects. Some of my audience members live in South America. Some live in regions where pricing is crazy. And so things like Game Pass or subscription services like that afford them, the opportunity to have a wide library of games that they can just play for a very small fee monthly. So, that's another upside to it as well, if you were to ask me. So this is going to continue to go on. I'm going to keep my eye close as to, to what both of them are doing. I've kind of like, not made a lot of videos about this, but, many of you know that I enjoy making videos like this. And so we're yet to see the next few releases that we coming out in the summer, coming out down the road. So we're going to see how they all pan out. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section, though. This is a conversation that I'm probably going to be taking some time to do over the course of the next few months on the channel. So stay tuned and we'll talk soon. Peace out.